direction is a call to new life. And new life is about taking chances, risking life, not playing it safe, because without taking the chances, we will never know what we can achieve. In her book, If Your Dream Does Not Scare You, It's Not Big Enough, Christine Stevens shares detailed events of her excursions around the world. Christine made a big decision to leave her plush corporate job. She was looking forward to the adventure that she and her fiancé planned. A few weeks before the trip, she and her fiancé, they parted ways. She thought about canceling the trip, but she had already invested the money. So she decided to take the adventure anyway, exploring countries that she had never explored before. Friends, it takes courage to explore new territory, especially alone. In today's text, we discover the beauty of starting fresh. As we explore today's narrative, I want you to think about the characters as metaphors. Naomi as opportunity, Ruth as risk, and Boaz as provision. Now, before I get into the lesson, I want to set the stage for us. So the backdrop to this story is in chapter 1, Naomi left Bethlehem with her family. And in Naomi's day, to be married and to have children gave a woman status and security. Her life was very comfortable for a season. However, as time went on, she lost her husband, and then later on, she lost her sons. Her sons married, but they did not have children. So in this context, the women had lost their security and their status. It would be customary for the younger women to return home. And Naomi, being a good mother-in-law, encouraged the women to return home. It took some coaxing, but Oprah returns home. However, Ruth clung to her mother-in-law. She pleaded to return to her land with her. She gives this beautiful monologue of her determination to stay with her mother-in-law. When Naomi sees her determination, she gives up, and they take the journey. Friends, why would Ruth leave the comforts of her land and the family that she knew? Her security was at home. The only person she would know is Naomi. And friends, let's be real. Naomi's track record was one of losing close relatives. And who knows? At any moment, Naomi herself could die, especially in her mental state. She was depressed. If you read around verse 20 of chapter 1, you will see Naomi telling the townspeople, "Do not call me Naomi any longer. Call me Mara, for the Lord has dealt bitterly with me." Friends, I contend that Ruth was looking for an opportunity to discover who she could fully become. I contend that she desired to explore a world outside her comfort zone. She didn't play it safe. She did not stand outside the fire. Have you ever had a job that you became bored with? You know that you have reached the pinnacle of your career in that job, but you remain anyhow. After all, you have security. You have the paid vacation, the 401k, health benefits, life insurance. Your family is taken care of. And hey, as long as you stick with it, they are very, very secure. Have you ever stayed in a relationship that was drama-filled, unfulfilling, draining, and toxic, but you remained anyhow because it was comfortable, it was safe, it kept you from being alone? Have you ever stayed with an ideology because it was passed down from one generation to the next? And friends, I can tell you that I can answer in the affirmative to most of these questions. I spent so much time doing the right thing because it was proper. It was family tradition. It was respectable. Those were my excuses for not exploring unfamiliar. In the movie After Earth, Will Smith's character says to his son, "Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear that do not at present or may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice." You know what happens when we stay with familiar? We become stagnant, we stop growing, we miss out on some wonderful opportunities. God has a sense of humor, and I love that about God. Early in my career, I had an employer who knew that I was an ordained minister. This employer allowed me to rearrange my schedule so that I could work on my THM. After a few months in the program, my employer came to me and he said, "Latrell, you and I both know that you have been called to something more than answering phones and writing correspondence." He said, "I'm going to give you a severance check, and I'm going to make some contacts to some friends of mine. And let's see if we can find some employment that best suits you." And I thought to myself, well, God, I knew it was time to go, but did you really have to do it like that? Friends, the truth is, I would have remained with that job because it was comfortable. I would have remained because I enjoyed the annual trips and I enjoyed all the benefits. It was a plush job. It was easy, and guess what? It did not require a lot of me. There are times when I find myself wanting to stay with familiar. And I have learned that when things stop working out in familiar, that is often God's way of aligning me with something better. I have lost track of the number of times I have said, "But God, I haven't done it like this before. God, this was just an idea. I haven't fully developed it yet. People are not going to like this. They're going to think I'm crazy." And within, this is the response I always hear. That is your fear speaking. Soledad O'Brien once shared these words: "I've learned that fear limits you and your vision. It serves as blinders to what may be just a few steps down the road for you. The journey is valuable, but believing in your talents, your abilities, and your self-worth can empower you to walk down an even brighter path, transforming fear into freedom. How great is that?" You know another reason that we're resistant to change? We are afraid of making mistakes. And I can be a bit of a perfectionist, especially when it comes to my work. And I can promise you, when I leave here today, I will replay the sermon's delivery in my mind. Why did I say that? Oh, I should have said this. What was I thinking when I said that? And this will go on for a couple of days. And Mickey will hear me make some weird sounds and loud sighs, and she will say, "What?" And I'll say, "Nothing." I can tweak the same project over and over again. If it's a new project, I have to have a plan. I have to have an outline. I have to have it all figured out because there is less chance of me failing. And Latrell hates to fail. Christine Stevens said this about mistakes: "I applaud myself when I make mistakes because it means I have tried something new. Now, I'm not a financial wizard like Warren Buffett, but I love and could understand what he was saying. Diversification is protection against ignorance. Diversification is protection against ignorance. So friends, that means to me that every now and then we need to mix it up. Because the truth of the matter is, if we continue to close ourselves off from exploring that which is new, we will never know who we can fully become. So as I reflect today on Ruth's journey to Bethlehem, I am reminded that she does not travel alone. Naomi is her companion. And friends, that reminds us on today that when we are traveling in uncharted waters, we never travel alone. God is always with us. When we arrive at unfamiliar, things will move slow, but transformation is a process. Chickens are made in 21 days, but eagles take longer. And now I know somebody is wondering, Latrell just went left. Why is she talking about chickens and eagles and we are talking about risk, opportunity, and provision? I'm so glad you asked me. Because by the time we reach the conclusion of this sermon, it will make sense. The eagle is a regal bird. That means it is the king of birds. It dwells in high and lofty places. It is known for its strength and speed. Eagles are not as easily produced as chickens and other birds. Chickens may be produced in 21 days or less and are ready for market in about 8 or 9 weeks. But it takes time to produce an eagle. An eagle lays eggs, 1 or 2 eggs at a time, which are incubated by both parents for a long period of time, up to 49 days in larger species. The young remain in their nest as long as 130 days before they become a fledgling. And among the larger species of eagles, the entire reproductive process may last more than 12 months, so that successful breeding may take place once every other year. Greatness, excellence, going through unfamiliar, it's a process. But friends, in unfamiliar, Ruth learns a valuable lesson. If you cultivate and immerse yourself in the new, you will receive a whole lot more than what you anticipated. Ruth encounters Boaz. Boaz speaks words of kindness and affirmation to her. He recognizes her as a stranger who left the security of her home to come to a place to seek new security, not just for herself, but also for her mother-in-law. This was a bold, courageous move for a foreign woman. She took a risk. Now, because of her status and race, people could have assumed that she had an ulterior motive. Fear of the unknown stranger could have caused serious problems for her. But friends, no one said to her, "You are taking away work from our citizens." No one said to her, "You are a tax liability." No one said, "Let's create barriers to keep her out." No, Boaz and the townspeople show us a more excellent way. When we encounter the stranger or the other, we should offer protection and provision. Boaz represents provision in new territory. Friends, I'm not sure who first spoke these words, but I recall Oprah saying that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Friends, when we leave familiar, before we arrive at unfamiliar, provisions will be made for us to cultivate our gifts. And I can say that this is true because it's true in my own life. 3 years ago, I decided to leave a job that I loved and enjoyed. I was a respected team member, and the benefits were amazing. And some would say, why would you leave all of that? You know that by the time you reach retirement, you can be very comfortable. I knew that, and I understood well what I was walking away from. But I knew that I was being called to new life, to reinvent, to become my authentic self. It hasn't been an easy journey, but I can tell you that it has been amply rewarding. Ruth's work ethic positioned her for new security and new status. Friends, if you turn to Matthew, the first chapter, and you read the genealogy of Jesus, you will find the name of Ruth mentioned in that lineage. Leaving familiar will cause us to adapt to a new way of thinking and a new way of doing things. Tom Peters said, "Excellent firms don't believe in excellence, only in constant improvement and change. Change is necessary to become the beautiful creation that God intended. We already have within us the greatness that we need to be successful. And you know what? God will always provide sage counsel along the way so that we can excel right where we are. But our mentality is key to our success." I would like to share with you this wisdom story. This is me getting back to the chicken and the eagle. In the African American preaching tradition, passed down from generation to the next, there is a story about a man who is hiking near his home. This man finds a strange-looking egg. This man takes the strange-looking egg home with him. He owns a chicken farm. He places the strange-looking egg in the incubator with chicken eggs to be hatched. In time, this strange-looking egg produces a strange-looking bird. And so it was that even though this bird had a peculiar air about itself, the farmer decided he would raise the bird like chickens, since chickens were all he ever raised. Soon, because all this bird ever saw were chickens, because all he was ever given was chicken feed, because day in and day out he was treated like a chicken, and because the only name he ever was called was chicken, the bird began to act like a chicken. He lost his peculiar air and no longer seemed so out of place. But one day, a visitor came by, and the man walked up to the farmer and asked why he had an eagle living among chickens. The farmer said, "He may look like an eagle, but I have raised him like a chicken. He lives among chickens. He eats like chickens. The only life he knows is the life of a chicken, so a chicken is all he will ever be." The visitor said, "You cannot callously tamper with the soul of God's creation. God has placed within this bird the seed for greatness, and you have confined him to a barnyard. However, no creature that God has intended for flying in high and lofty places is beyond redemption, no matter how long it's been in the barnyard." The visitor continues, "This bird may have the habits of a chicken, but deep down within, where your environment can't reach, God has placed the heart and the soul of an eagle." The visitor lifted the eagle and said, "God did not create you to be a chicken. God created you to be an eagle, so stretch forth your wings and fly." The eagle took off from the visitor's hand, but as it was ascending, the farmer threw chicken feed to the ground. And the farmer looked at the visitor and said, "I told you he was nothing but a chicken." At this point, the visitor takes the eagle to the top of the barn so that the eagle could see that there was a world beyond the barnyard. He lifted the eagle again and said, "God did not create you to be a chicken. God created you to be an eagle, so stretch forth your wings and fly." The eagle took off, but again the farmer threw chicken feed to the ground. Again, the bird took off ascending, and the eagle came right back to the ground and began to eat chicken feed. Once again, the farmer turns to the visitor and said, I told you he was nothing but a chicken. The visitor refused to give up. So early the next morning, while it was still dark, the visitor takes the eagle and begins to climb a high mountain. He tucks the eagle under his arm and they begin to climb. And as he approached the top, the sun was beginning to break the darkness of the eastern horizon. The visitor placed the eagle in his hand one more time and he said, God did not create you to be an eagle. God did not create you to be a chicken. God created you to be an eagle, so stretch forth your wings and fly. The rays of the rising sun struck the piercing gleam in the eagle's eye, and with lots of energy on one great leap, with outstretched wings, the eagle flew to the dawning of a new day, not looking back, not looking down, but only toward the greatness that God had intended. Friends, familiar will confine and restrict us from becoming who we can fully become. But unfamiliar will stretch us and help us discover the gifts and the character that we did not know existed within us. Greatness is within you. Greatness is within all of us here present on today. So my friends, go ahead, be like the sisters in the text. Take your journey. Be bold. Be bodacious. Be your bad, beautiful selves. Walk in your own stilettos. Walk in your own loafers, gentlemen. Write the book. Start the new ministry. Create the new slate. Go to the training. Live a life of post-resurrection. Do you. Soar. And do it with your own flair. Friends, what I know for sure is this, that we are more than we can ever imagine, that we are powerful beyond measure. Will you take a moment and close your eyes with me? Inhale deeply through your nose and exhale through your mouth. What big dream do you have that scares you? What opportunities have you said not yet to? What burning desire do you have that will not let you sleep at night? Keep your eyes closed and listen to these words by Howard Thurman. There is something in everyone that waits, listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself. And if you cannot hear it, you will never find what it is for which you are searching. And if you hear it and then do not follow it, it was better that you had never been born. You are the only you that has ever lived. Your idiom is the only idiom of its kind in all of existence. There is in you something that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself. And sometimes there is so much traffic going on in your minds, so many different kinds of signals, so many vast impulses flowing through your organism that go back thousands of generations, long before you were a thought in the mind of creation. And you are buffeted by these. But in the midst of all of this, you have got to find out what your name is. Who are you? How does the sound of the genuine come through to you? The sound of the genuine is flowing through you. Cultivate the discipline of listening to the sound of the genuine in yourself. Now, if I hear the sound of the genuine in me, and if you hear the sound of the genuine in you, it is possible for me to go down in my spirit and come up in your spirit, so that when I look at myself through your eyes, having made that pilgrimage, I see in me what you see in me. And then the walls that separates and divides will disappear, and we will become one, because the sound of the genuine makes the same music.